This is Sarnia Lambton Daily for Thursday, May 14th. Good evening, I'm Terry DeWay. The Ontario government is taking more steps to reopen certain businesses in the province. This afternoon, Premier Doug Ford said there will be changes as of Saturday morning.
My friends, thanks to our collective efforts, today we're prepared to announce the details of the next stage of reopening the economy. We're getting thousands of people back to work. We've laid a solid foundation for our economic reopening and recovery. We have the framework, we have the workplace safety guidelines, we have the capacity in our healthcare system. And today, I'm ready to announce that this Saturday at 12:01 a.m., private parks and campgrounds, marinas and boat clubs, golf courses, and businesses that board animals will be allowed to open. And we need to keep in mind that all of this is dependent on the numbers. The truth is, we can't fully predict where things will go. So we need to be ready to react if we see a sudden increase in cases. We cannot let our guard down now. We must watch the trends like a hawk. And we need to remember, as we ramp up more and more daily testing, as we get more and more people back to work, the risk of flare-ups is real. So we need to stay vigilant. We can't take our progress for granted. We can't ignore the health advice. We need to be ready to respond, and we will be ready.
To clarify, for golf courses, clubhouses can be open for washroom use and the restaurants providing only takeout service. Additional reopenings are coming up after the long weekend. Starting Tuesday, retail stores with street entrances can open. Animal services such as dog groomers and many other seasonal businesses can reopen as well, as long as they are adhering to physical distancing measures. Stores have been told to only reopen when they are ready to follow those rules. Locally, a Sarnia nursing home continues to deal with a COVID-19 outbreak, with the numbers on the rise. Vision Nursing Home has seen its number of positive cases jump to 12 residents and 5 staff members. This is an increase of 7 positive cases in total over the most recent results. Overall in Sarnia Lambton, 212 people have tested positive, and there are now 48 active cases in the region. Well, with all the information around whether it's positive cases of COVID-19, deaths, services being closed, it's put quite a strain. Of course, job loss as well. A lot of strain on people, and maybe some challenges with their mental health as well. With more on that, let's bring in Alan Stevenson, the CEO of the Canadian Mental Health Association, Lambton Kent branch. And Alan, I know you've had some polling information come out in terms of people accessing and maybe not accessing services. Overall, what are you seeing right now during this pandemic?
Thanks, Terry. So early on in the pandemic, we saw people really, I think, took the approach that this is likely going to be a short-term change, that things will return back to normal. And consequently, we saw a real reduction in people seeking services, in fact, lower than we've ever seen in the last 3 years at least. But in the last 3 weeks, we've seen that really change. And what we're seeing is that people are now accessing services. They're wanting to get mental health supports. And what we're finding is that along with the increase in numbers, we're also seeing an increase in the severity of challenges that people are experiencing. We use the term acuity, the acuity of their symptoms. We're finding that that acuity is higher. So people have tried to cope and waited to reach out to us, and consequently are experiencing greater disruption to their lives around their mental health, higher levels of distress, and so are struggling even more than we would typically see in terms of people reaching out for help.
I know this may be simplifying it a little bit, but when we talk about the stigma of mental health and people willing to reach out, can you kind of relate it to people over the years where maybe there's a physical issue they're dealing with in their health, and the longer they wait to get it checked, sometimes the more difficult it is for the health field to assist. Is there a similarity like that with mental health?
Absolutely, absolutely. We as a principle believe, and evidence has been very clear, that early identification and early intervention is much more effective. It results in usually a shorter term service with better results quicker, as well as less pain and suffering for the individual and their family themselves that are experiencing mental health problems. So, yeah, the longer mental health issues go unresolved or unhelped, the more likely they are to be a more challenging or longer in nature to resolve.
Are you finding there are situations as well where people, it's one thing if you're dealing with maybe a death in the family due to the pandemic or job loss and worrying about how you're going to pay your bills, but even for people out of any age where it's a lot of the smaller things add up, whether it's their usual, not being able to see family, and then their sports teams weren't able to play right now, and it just, sort of adds up where maybe the one thing isn't an issue, but because it's sort of piled on now for 8 weeks, that's really hampered them?
Well, we know stress is cumulative for sure. And we're all experiencing higher levels of worry and frustration and stress around all of those things that you mentioned. And when you add on maybe a pre-existing sort of history of anxiety or depression, or add on things like, limited social networks to begin with and isolation. Elderly people who have relied really heavily on contact from their adult children, their peers, who may have fewer peers just as a result of having aged and lost peers over time. Very, very isolated now, and those worries are compounding for sure.
Alan, are there some people who maybe just reaching out once can put them on the right track?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a reach out for mental health services. It can be a reach out to a friend or a family member, someone who's trusted. I mean, we just passed Mental Health Week last week nationally, and our theme this year was get real about your mental health. And what that means to us is it's so important in this time of greater isolation and social distancing, physical distancing, that we've lost contact with people, to reach out and get contact, have real authentic conversations about how you're doing, about your mental health. As Canadians, we often use the term fine, and fine can mean, yeah, I'm fine. It can also mean I'm great, but I don't want to talk about it. But it can also mean I'm really, really struggling. The importance of getting beyond that kind of fine response, that kind of I guess insincere or incomplete response to that authentic conversation about what's going on, and saying, yeah, I'm struggling, this is hard, honestly, we're all feeling it, and just get that support and give that support to others as well. That can be critical. And for those folks that need more, to know that there are mental health resources and supports available really when you need them.
We just heard before you joined us how the province has said this weekend some things can open up, like golf courses and campgrounds with certain rules. Do you find that even for some people, just that something to now look forward to again and moving forward is going to at least give them that little bit of a lift they maybe needed when things were looking pretty bleak? And for somebody else who doesn't golf or doesn't camp, says that's not a big thing to me, but for just that certain group of the population, is it probably maybe a step in the right direction when it comes to their mental health?
Oh, I think so. I mean, we've always known the importance of the connection between physical and mental health. So getting active, and for those who are really enthusiastic about those activities and those choices, I'm sure it's like a light at the end of the tunnel kind of a thing. And for all of us, I mean, I think the importance of activity. I know we encourage people to do simple things like get out for that walk, recognizing and following physical distancing rules, but getting outdoors, getting some fresh air, appreciating the flowers that are beginning to bloom, appreciating the nice weather when it comes. All of those things can make a huge difference in people's just sense of well-being.
This going on here in 2020, have you found where technology has helped people connect to maybe help out, where we saw the younger demographic was into FaceTime and things like that, but now we're seeing more and more people accessing technology to connect?
Yeah, certainly. So CMHA has been open throughout the pandemic, but the majority of our services have been virtual. We do have some services that are face-to-face, and they have to be because of the nature of those services. But the majority of our services have been virtual, and we're finding that for the most part, people are really embracing that. Some people love it. Others slower to start, but that's like everything, right? There's no one size fits all for anything. I do think going forward that we will continue to offer more virtual services, although we'll also be beginning to ramp up around more of our face-to-face contact services as well.
Finally, before we let you go, Alan, we appreciate your time. What would you tell someone who's watching us right now who just says, yeah, I think I need someone to talk to, I think I need to reach out and just, you know, get my mental health looked into right now?
Yeah, if you are one of those individuals that's struggling and you do feel like you need some professional support, you know, we're here. We are open. We do have access to services by phone at our 1-800 number, available from 8 a.m. Until 10 p.m. every day, 7 days a week. So that is an option. We are finding that there's a higher call volume lately as it's increasing, and some of those calls are being a little more lengthy because of the acuity that I talked about earlier. So you may have to leave a callback number, but we are calling back usually within an hour.
We appreciate you joining us, Alan. Some great information, great advice for people, and stay well, and appreciate all the efforts of the CMHA throughout this, and we'll catch up to you again soon.
Thanks, Terry, for giving us this opportunity to reach out.
Thank you, Alan. There's Alan Stevenson, CEO of the CMHA Lambton Kent branch. You're watching Sarnia Lambton Daily on your TV. Welcome back. Throughout our time here at Sarnia Lambton Daily, we've been focusing on the people with two legs, you might say, dealing with the pandemic. What about the four-legged individuals and creations that are dealing with the pandemic? Let's go to the Sarnia District Humane Society. There's Executive Director Donna Pyette joining me now. And Donna, first of all, how are things going right now?
Things are going pretty good. Lots of changes, lots of new protocols and practices in place, which is, I mean, it's different, but it's going really well. Lots of great support from the community.
So take us through, what are some of the things you had to put in place, even going back to when this all started in March?
So when it first started in March, we found out pretty quickly that this was not going to be something that was only going to last a couple of weeks, but probably a few months, if not for the rest of the year. The first thing we did was we concentrated on the dogs, getting them into foster homes as quickly as possible, which we were very successful with. All of the dogs were placed into foster homes, and most of those dogs have now become foster fails, and their foster families will be adopting them. So that's great news. Next was cats. As they continue to come in, we're in high heat season, which made things a little bit challenging. Lots of mums and kittens. Again, people opened up their homes very quickly to us, and we were able to get the majority of mums and kittens, or kittens without mums, into foster homes, so as we started to down the shelter.
Yeah, so I guess that's the thing. You sort of had to spring into action and really adjust things very quickly, because indeed we were into that period of uncertainty.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, we still had to continue to be here for the community. Animals, strays, surrenders, emergency housing, those things were still taking place. So we had to quickly put some protocols into place with contactless handoffs of animals, throwing everything online, adoptions, doing everything over the phone. It was, but I think we got it together pretty quickly, and it's been going really smoothly.
So what about the care of the animals that are there right now? Obviously the building itself would be closed off to the public, but I'm sure that's definitely an ongoing situation.
Yes, and we do have, so we have limited staff that come in, basically the same staff, we've teamed up, and they come in every day to continue to care for the animals, and we're here all day from 8 till 4, 7 days a week, so that those animals can not only get cared for, but also get the enrichment and the attention that they need throughout the day.
Yeah, I guess that's got to be a big thing, is indeed that the animals need that attention. You know, pandemic or not, the animals certainly need that still, that care. The care and the attention does not stop.
Absolutely, absolutely, and the staff has been fantastic. It's been we've run into a few challenges, but we've gotten through them, and things have stayed pretty smoothly.
So the one thing probably someone out there watching and might think, okay, I'm in isolation and, you know, it's maybe some lonely times and, hey, an animal would help me through this. What comes to mind is kind of the Christmas thing where doing it maybe on an impulse, but not necessarily looking at the long-term situation. Is that something that people definitely would have to be conscious of?
Absolutely. And we've been having those conversations with people when they've been calling or when they've been applying online to adopt an animal. We've been having those conversations with them so that they have a clear understanding that, you know, the pandemic will end and life will, you know, kind of get back to normal. And, you know, that pet is a pet for life. It's, you know, you're still looking at 10 or 15 years, not just a few months.
So what is the process right now, or how has the process differed for adopting right now?
So what we do is every Friday, usually by noon, we post on our website and share a link to our Facebook page for all the animals that we do have in our care that are currently up for adoption. We post a little bio about each one with their pictures. There is a button if you're interested in adopting. It will say, you know, press here to adopt this animal. Which will bring you to a fillable application form. Once that's filled out, you submit it back to us, and one of our adoption staff will call you, usually within that day, or at least within the next 8 to 12 hours. They will call you to have a conversation with you further in regards to the animal and the adoption process. And once you're approved for adoption, all payment is done online, either through e-transfer or a credit card over the phone. And the handoff, we're very lucky. We have a breezeway with 2 doors there, so we're able to make it a completely contactless process of handing that animal over to the new owner.
So it does sound like basically you're not getting a chance to meet the animal until the adoption's in place. So I guess even more important to know this is what you want to do.
Exactly. Absolutely. And right now, we've only been adopting out cats. We have not been adopting out dogs. That process will definitely look a little different, and we're working on that right now because there has to be a meet and greet when it comes to dogs, especially, and especially those who have other dogs at home. There has to be that meet and greet. So we are working on that process right now. We think we have a good idea of how that will roll out, and when we open up, we will definitely begin that process.
How are things going right now in terms of numbers, in terms of animals in the shelter?
We've actually been pretty good. Our numbers have stayed, I would say, between 20 and 30 in the shelter. All cats, as the dogs have all gone out to foster, right up until this week. And this week we've started to see an influx of kittens, mostly motherless kittens, litters coming into the shelter. I know yesterday we probably took in about 15 kittens, all very young. So those numbers, and I mean, we expected it. We expect to see those numbers continue to increase, and we'll continue to do what we can to work within the realms of this new way of doing things.
Donna, what do you see going forward as some of the challenges that could be faced, whether it's from animals, fundraising, things along those lines?
The fundraising efforts will definitely be impacted. All of our fundraisers have been canceled right up until the end of September, and then pending government rules and regulations, whether we'll continue anything past that or not, or whether they may be discontinued for the rest of the year. as we receive no government funding, that will impact us greatly, because one thing that is not stopping, and that is the number of animals that continue to come into our shelter. It's our hope that people will be patient with us when we do open, that they will follow the rules of social distancing and get used to the new way of adopting, which will be online and virtual and through contactless. And yeah, it's hard to tell right now what our challenges will be. I think our biggest challenge will be in continuing to operate the shelter with a lot less funding, with the loss of our fundraising.
Are you hearing any stories? Is there concern down the road when we talk about people with job losses in the economy? Obviously the cost, whether it's the cost for food, whether it's cost for medical attention, is there concerns that that's an area that could potentially slip through the cracks?
Absolutely, and we've discussed it at great length here at the shelter. As job loss continues and as the economy continues to be impacted, you know, our biggest fear is people will have to make those difficult decisions, and the shelter could get inundated with a large number of surrenders. And you know, all we can do is hope for the best, hope to be able to, that they will reach out to us. I know that we have had some people reach out to us in regards to food and supplies for their animals, and we've been more than happy to provide that to them. And we'll just continue to take it day by day and do what we need to do to ensure that pets are well taken care of. And if people do need to surrender, that, you know, that they do have that option to surrender to us, and that we will be able to continue to find them homes.
Finally, for someone watching us right now that's either looking for more information or wants to help out, what sort of message can you pass along?
Patience, be patient with us. We do get a lot of calls in regards to adoptions. And as I said earlier, we are posting those adoptions every Friday right now, usually by noon. Asking in regards to donations. Donations are always greatly appreciated. As animals continue to come into the shelter, we are still in need of, you know, kitten food and cat food and toys and blankets, and all those things are still necessary. We are still in, even though our doors are locked to the public, we are still in full operation here and caring for the animals. So any of those supplies are always greatly appreciated and greatly needed. And we just ask that when you bring them, we are open from 8 till 4 Monday, 7 days a week actually. Just bring them, drop them at the door, ring the doorbell once, and we will come out and get them. And we do really appreciate any donations we can get.
I'll make sure everybody knows about that. Donna, we appreciate the time. Stay well, and we'll catch up to you again soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
There's Donna Pyette joining us now from the Sarnia District Humane Society. You're watching Sarnia Lambton Daily on your TV. Recapping our top story tonight, private campgrounds, marinas, and golf courses can reopen as of Saturday. For golf courses, the clubhouse can be open for washroom use and the restaurants for takeout only. That's going to do it for our show this evening. I'm Terry Doyle. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you back here tomorrow.